Hello, welcome to our data discussion about MSIP 5, MAP, and EOC. This is our fall data review for the board meeting on October 9th, 2013. We're going to go over a few items of note, particularly our MSIP 5 report. As most of you are aware, MSIP stands for Missouri School Improvement, and this is our plan. Missouri is now in the 5th cycle instead of the 4th, and so our data report looks a little bit different. As you look at these, you'll notice that we have our total number of APR points, and APR stands for Annual Performance Report, and you'll notice that we scored 130.5 out of 140 points. So that's very good for us, and that equals out to a 93.2%. of the total points that we scored. When you look at the bottom, you'll notice there are 5 MSIP 5 standards on this report. The first is academic achievement, and it'll let you know there that there were 56 points possible. We earned 55.5. So in academic achievement, that's a 99.1% of the points earned that the district earned. Our subgroup achievement, we're at 100% on that, as well as our graduation rate. So both of those we are doing very well in. And you'll notice there are 2 areas there that probably we want to work a little bit more on, and that's college and career readiness, where we came in with 78.3% of the points, and attendance with 75% of the points possible. So what does this mean for us? As we know, our APR is our accreditation report. And so what this means is that we were accredited with distinction. And so we are very excited to still be able to maintain that accreditation level. This is a little more data that kind of supports the achievement in those categories, those 5 categories or 5 MSIP standards. So as you'll notice, you can look at our academic achievement, and you'll notice that social studies is the area where we lost the 0.5 points in academic achievement, and we do have a plan. We'll talk about that a little later to rectify the situation. Subgroup achievement, very well, 100% all the way down the board. And our college and career readiness, that's where you can look and kind of see, some of those standards we need to work a little bit more on, and we're going to go into depth in those in just a moment. And our attendance and graduation rates as well. When you look at our district achievement data, you'll notice that over the past 3 years, English language arts in 2011 was at 57% proficient or advanced as a district, and then in 2012 we got to the 65.6% proficiency level, and 2013 we held steady. In math, you can see that we've grown as a district from 56.4% proficient in advanced to 59.7%, and then we took a pretty good size leap to 64.6% proficient. Our science scores are also growing. Our social studies scores, though, have become, they're on a decline, and so we are going to be working on those, and we'll talk about what we're going to be doing for that in a few minutes. For our subgroup achievement, you'll notice good positive things in our subgroup achievement. With the exception of social studies, all content areas are growing with a number of students across the district who are proficient or advanced. And this is our first time that we've seen this super subgroup for MSIP 5, or actually our second time, because this is the second year, but we had a little different of an APR report last year. This super subgroup includes our Black, Hispanic, SPED, free and reduced lunch, and our English language learners. So this subgroup is a compilation of those students, and so we are accountable at every district building now for these students. College and career readiness, you'll notice that we took a couple drops on 3.1 and 3.12 and 3.13, as well as 3.4, and then we had a little bit of a decline. We had an increase and then a decline in 3.5 through 6. So the question becomes, what are those standards and what does that really mean? 3.1 is our graduates who are scoring at or above state standard on the ACT, SAT, Compass, and ASVAB. 3.2 is the district average composite score, demonstrating improvement on those 4 assessments. And 3.3 is the percent of graduates participating in ACT, SAT, Compass, and ASVAB. So we have to really make sure that we have all of our graduates participating in one of those assessments. It's a different kind of a calculation than what we really saw in 2001. And so we are looking at how to increase our scores and also how to get more students taking these assessments. So in 10th grade, all of our students will be taking the ACT. That is something we approved on our assessment plan, so that every student will graduate with an ACT score. Additionally, our 11th graders will all be taking the ASVAB, and so that's a difference as well, and it will allow all of our students to have at least an ACT and an ASVAB score before they graduate. 3.4 is the percent of graduates earning a score on either an advanced placement assessment, an international baccalaureate, or in the technical skills attainment, TSA assessments. This is really our early college, our dual enrollment, our dual credit courses. Some of our ag courses can fit into that, where they can earn that technical skills attainment level. What we are going to do, we are working on this as well. We have looked at 10th grade having the meeting with parents about early college. The students will take the ACT, so they will be able to qualify to take those classes as 11th graders. And then we've really looked at the offerings that we have as a district, and we've partnered with State Fair to offer more courses to our students in those areas. So we are hoping that our enrollment in those classes will go up, and this will be a score then that we will see on the rise this year. 3.5 is the percent of graduates attending post-secondary education or training, or those who are in the military, or those who are working in related occupations. So we have refined our follow-up process with district graduates. We continue to work on how to get that information back after students have graduated, and 6 months later we have to contact them to find out. So we're working on our process to ensure that we have contact with 100% of our graduates to get that number up and find out how many are in those careers or are in post-secondary education. Attendance is a little bit different. With MSIP 5, it really has changed our attendance rate calculation, and it's very important to understand this, because in the last MSIP, we had our average daily attendance had to be in the 95th percentile. So we could average that out. This has changed. And MSIP 5 does like rolling averages over 3 years, and so this is kind of where it's hurting us at this point. When you look, MSIP 5 is now asking that 90% of students must attend school 90% of the time. So it's not that average daily attendance rate the same way we used to know it. Now we have to have the 90-90. So if you look at 2011, which was still under the previous ADA for MSIP 4, and we met at 95%, but when you look at, we're 90% of our students here 90% of the time, we're at an 89.7. So we're just hovering right there in 2011. In 2012, we did a little bit, we were at 88.9, so a little bit of a decline there. But this year we were right on at 90%, and that's really what we've designed our calendar for, what we've designed several different things. We have some Johnson County attendance policies going into effect to really help us get students in the classroom most of the time. Okay. As we look, this is our MAP data and really our EOC data as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. We talked quite extensively about it last spring. When we look at our MAP data for 2013, one of the things I wanted to highlight and really celebrate is that last year we told our students grades 3 through 8 that if they grew on their MAP test, and by growth either moving a level or by achieving 50 scale score points increase over their previous scale score points, they would get to do an event called You Grow, You Go. This year we had a total of 549 students who fell in that category, and this would be our 4th grade through our 8th grade when they had 2 scores. And so in math, we actually had 471 students qualify. In ELA, we had 443 students qualify. And in science, 136. And as you can tell, there were some students that qualified in multiple categories and content areas to be able to do the You Grow, You Go. For Communication Arts 2013, when we look at our current students, we want to look at our growth. Yes, it is important to know how students did year to year, but we really want to make sure that our our student cohort groups are growing. And so as you can tell, the next few slides will be about that student growth. I'll try and zoom in so you can see the percentages there. So this is 5th grade. They were at a 52.7 when they were in 3rd grade, and that's the percent of students proficient or advanced on the MAP test. And last year as 4th graders, that percent was 65.6%, and this is across the district. Our current 6th grade students, our current 7th grade students, our current 8th grade students, our current 9th grade students, and this is one thing to remember is that we did have some new staff members last year in the ELA department in middle school, at 6th grade, 8th grade, and at 5th grade. And so the fact that these cohort groups for the most part are continuing to grow and achieve was pretty impressive, that first year teachers could continue that growth as well as our teachers who've been with us for a few years. So that's a very good positive thing to think about. Now when we get into 10th grade, it does become a little bit, ELA is a little bit easier to align this year because usually it is, they would have been 9th graders, they would have taken the English 1 as 9th graders, as 10th graders they all take the English 2. So ELA aligns pretty well, and we can say this is probably our cohort group of our current 10th grade students. So you can see where they scored in 8th grade, where they scored in 9th grade, and then where they scored in 10th grade. Again, for our current 11th grade students, you can see how they're doing on their English 2, their English 1 EOCs, and their 8th grade assessment. When we talk about math, we're also going to be focusing on growth. And we had some exciting growth in the 4th grade this year for a variety of reasons. We really wanted to focus on math. We had a new program that we were implementing, Math in Focus, which really focused on the conceptual understanding of students and how to teach math, as well as learning how to represent that and come up with different strategies for focusing on math. We had, when you look at this in 2012, our district 3rd graders were at 51% proficient or advanced. Last year, our 4th graders scored, the same group of students, 74% proficient or advanced. That is an incredible growth, and we saw that across the district, which is very exciting. As we continue, you'll look in the 5th grade. 5th grade grew. These are our current 6th grade students. Our current 7th grade students. Our our current 8th grade students, and our current 9th grade students. Now, I do have to say one thing is different about our scores with our current 9th grade students, and this is going to be a little bit different, and it's the issue that we really bump into as soon as we start talking about math and trying to look at that cohort group growth across 8th grade and into high school. And what this is the fact that as of 2013, this is the first year that our Algebra 1 students did not also take the 8th grade MAP test. And so you take out all of our 8th grade Algebra 1 students are not in this number, whereas in 2012 and 2011, their percentage, how they scored on the MAP, was also in that score. So that's an important note as we look forward. We're going to see a little bit of a difference in our recording of those numbers and what they might look like. And obviously we want every student to grow and to continue to increase our percentages of proficient and advanced. Our current 10th grade. Now 10th grade, and I apologize that this graph represents our current 10th grade students, or at least an idea of how those students would have scored in our proficient and advanced ranges. Now the reason I say an idea is because for generally those students take the 8th grade MAP test, but they also then take the Algebra 1 the following year. So this would have been those students as Algebra 1, 8th grade, and then as 7th grade students. Generally, that's how it works. However, we do have a group of students who took Algebra 1 in 2012, and they would not be represented in this 2013. So it isn't quite a perfect match for cohort group growth, but it is a way to kind of show that where our scores are going. And in the future, this will be a much better match as we have students who will be taking 8th grade Algebra 1, and they'll go on to geometry and we'll be able to pull those scores, since this year our Algebra 1 students, this past year our Algebra 1 students did not take the 8th grade MAP test. So in the future we'll have a better comparison. 11th grade students, that shows you the scores for geometry, which would be the blue, Algebra 1, which would be the green, and that's probably a pretty good representation of the students who took those assessments, and then the 8th grade class, that group of students as 8th graders. For 12th grade then, the blue would be Algebra 2, the green would be geometry, and the yellow would be how those students scored in Algebra 1. And again, I know that isn't a perfect match, but it's the best we can do right now, and we're working on how to disaggregate that farther to look at our cohort group growth. For science is a little bit different because we take 3 science assessments for the state of Missouri. We take 5th grade science MAP, we take 8th grade science MAP, and then we take the biology 1 end of course, which is at the 9th grade level. So when we look at our cohort group growth, we have a couple of things we can look at. We can look at our current 9th graders who were 8th graders last year, and we can see how they scored in 5th grade and then how they scored in 9th grade. We can also then look at our current 10th graders and see how they scored in 5th grade and 8th grade, and then what they did on this past Biology 1 EOC as well. When we get to social studies, it is hard to show any cohort group growth. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. We want all of our kids growing. We want to focus on how they are going to move forward. In social studies, we only take 2 assessments. We take American history and we take government, and that's it. And so you can see how scores have changed for American history. They're on the decline. We are working on that now. We have realigned our curriculum timeline, our scope and sequence, if you will. And we have talked about ways to include more literacy, to include more knowledge, and to get farther into American history to ensure that we are teaching up to the post-Reagan era. So getting our students further into history than we have in the past. And that requires a lot of trust and a lot of working together as a vertical team. And so that we are working on those things together in our collaboration time, which has been very beneficial for them. For government, I do have to point out, we had 55.5% proficient in 2011, and in 2012 we had 25%. It is really easy to look at that and go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But we have to remember that these were the students who had failed government previously in both of those years or had never taken government. That is not representative of our entire student population. So the blue score is representative of a full class of seniors taking the government EOC. So that is more representative of where we probably are with government than the 2 previous numbers. Our next steps, we are going to continue to work on our college and career indicators. We are looking as vertical teams during our collaboration time to identify our areas of concern for each content area and come up with a plan to address those. We have shared data with the teachers and broken that down into particular concepts that need to be addressed. We are collaborating as learning communities to identify and implement our effective instructional strategies. We are going to continue to utilize our new teacher evaluation system to unify understanding of effective teaching and also provide some professional learning and instructional coaching as we move forward. Finally, we are going to review our MSIP 5 information when it's available, and we plan to meet those new requirements as we continue to find out more about what those are and what they mean for our kids. We know that with MSIP 5 and over the course of the next couple of years that we will probably see our scores drop some. We know that Common Core is coming, and Missouri is calling those Missouri Learning Standards now, but we do anticipate that next year we will have a different assessment than what we have currently. So this will be our last year with the current Missouri assessment program test aligned to our GLEs and CLEs. Next year they will be aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards or the Common Core. And so we do anticipate that there will be a change as we are working to realign our curriculum and to fill our gaps. But I wanted to make sure I kept that on the forefront of your knowledge as well, that that change is coming. Thank you.